Hello, my name is Ann Purvis, and I'm one of the leaders of the Toronto Field Naturalist Juniors program. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the slideshow this past week. We were especially happy to welcome Nick Ipilar, who was one of the leaders of our in-person program. He presented to us this past week on dragonflies, but it was super fun to show him what amazing naturalists you are all becoming. We are starting out with art from Toby. The cool thing about this is not only that Toby did a great job on the wood duck, but he was inspired by all of you at last week's class. You also did amazing drawings, and that inspired Toby, and that's part of the reason for our program, is that we can encourage one another. Sometimes in nature we get such a quick look and then a creature disappears. When we have a drawing or a photo in front of us, we can savor it for much longer. Wood ducks are local ducks, and they're hole nesting ducks. When you see a bird box in the middle of a marsh with a big oval hole in the front of it, it will have been put there for wood ducks. The mummy calls from below, and the babies crawl up to the opening and jump out. Here is a National Geographic video that demonstrates this amazing phenomenon in nature. So this is a video that Toby and his little brother and mom took in Rouge Park, and I challenged the group to find the creature that they have photographed here. So Toby and Natasha heard this frog before they actually found it, and followed it to where it was, and we could actually hear the red-winged blackbirds in the background as well. So these are some photos of bike trip that Sienna and Sandra and Alexi took in the Dundas Valley Conservation Area. And I just wanted to point out what a whole lot of ways there are to enjoy nature. I remember thinking once that visiting Wonderland and going on the rides is a great way to enjoy nature, because it might be the closest thing that we ever come to the experience of flying that a bird has. Beautiful photos. Thank you, Sienna. Amara sent us this remarkable photo on the right, and Marina sent this photo of the hummingbird on the left. The hummingbird found its way to their 10th floor balcony to use their feeder. The photo on the right is a hummingbird mimic. This is a clear wing moth. So we actually thought about it in the group as to what kind of a creature this could be. So it's interesting to actually compare the two. And the hummingbird moth can hover like a hummingbird. It drinks from the same flowers as a hummingbird. So quite a remarkable case of mimicry. The caterpillars of the hummingbird moth eat cherry and snowberry leaves, and when they're full grown, they pupate in the leaf litter. So this is a really good example of why we should leave leaf litter lying in our gardens and under our trees. And then it comes out the next spring. So this must be a freshly emerged adult. I challenged the group whether anybody remembered this beautiful creature from last spring. We counted the spots. Some of us thought we could see 10 spots. There are 8 large ones, I think, and a couple of small ones. I believe this is the 8-spotted forester moth. So not a butterfly, which is what it looks like, but a moth. It feeds on grape and Virginia creeper, and I remember finding the caterpillar last summer. So that if you have Virginia creeper somewhere close by, or grapevine, have a look, because they were very abundant last year, so they may still be this summer. So I was planting something one day and stumbled upon this creature. This is a June beetle. So he, as an adult, he feeds on leaves, flowers, and fruits. But we've also, many of us, seen the comma-shaped white larva of the June beetle in the soil. This larva eats roots, but it also travels up and down in the soil depending on how dry or wet it is. So it leaves tunnels that allow roots to travel more, to grow more easily through the soil, and also oxygen and water to penetrate the soil. So June beetles are really important for soil health. So these photographs of tracks were sent in by Amara, and we did a lot of looking at tracks in the snow this past winter. But I just wanted to point out what beautiful tracks you can see in fresh sand. So after a rainfall, when the sand has been smoothed out and then the animals walk in it, you get these amazing tracks. These would be lovely for making asbestos casts from. A lot of our rivers and creeks in Toronto actually have these kind of sandy beaches where you can see these tracks. So wherever we see bones, there's a story behind it. So we actually sort of tentatively tried to reconstruct the story. We could see that this pair of antlers is not just the antlers that were dropped by a buck in January after the breeding season, because they still have the teeth attached. Here's the eye sockets. So this is actually an animal that died. So we were asking ourselves, what could have happened to this animal in the city? It's probably a white-tailed deer, because that's the main large mammal with antlers that we have in Toronto. Some people suggested maybe it died of old age. Maybe it died of sickness. It may have had a bacterial infection. It might also have been hit by a car. But other than that, top-line predators like wolves aren't around in the city, and coyotes don't normally hunt deer. Coyotes don't hunt in packs, and so they wouldn't be able to bring down a deer. So these are some photos from our pollinator garden at our church, Pollinate TO garden, and I just wanted to show, especially, these are gorgeous flowers, but they're also super wonderful for insects. The one on the right is hairy beard tongue, and bees love these kind of blue tubular flowers to crawl up. The patch on the left, I'm trying in my vegetable patch at the church this year to grow the Three Sisters. And one of our groups, Sonia, knew that the Three Sisters are corn, squash, and beans. So Indigenous folks grew vegetables this way. You start the corn first, and then when the corn's about this high, you plant the beans. So this was the day I put the bean seeds in. Once the bean seeds sprout, they are a vine, and they will use the corn as a climber and climb the corn. And then the squash sprouts later, and so I'm using zucchini. Some people use squash that sort of winds around the garden, and that will protect the roots and keep them cool in the heat of the summer. So super smart system. The beans also fix nitrogen from the air, so bringing in some of the minerals that the corn will need. When I was in the garden this week, I also found this cool plant, and some people guessed maybe that was a June bug attached to the roots of this little sapling. However, it is actually a baby oak tree coming out of an acorn, and it's fascinating to me that it has so many leaves and can make its own food, and yet it's still attached to the acorn and using the food stored up in the acorn. So we've seen a couple pictures of these swans in past slideshows, and I challenged the group if they remembered the name of this swan. This is our native swan, the trumpeter swan. And this pair is probably nesting at Leslie Street Spit because they're still here. So I asked the group, are these babies getting something to eat? It sure looks like they want something to eat. They're squawking, they have their mouths open. But the truth is that this mother it's cleaning day for this red-winged blackbird mother. And what she's got in her beak and what she's removing in this picture is actually feces from the nest. So birds will keep the nest clean, they'll remove the feces, or they'll eat them because they're still got nutrition in them that the mother can benefit from, especially when she's feeding young and maybe she's not getting as much to eat as she normally might. So in this photo, she's returning, and this time she has a creature in her mouth, and it looks like a creature with, we thought maybe, Sonia suggested maybe a grasshopper, because we can see the legs. It's bright green head. I didn't think grasshoppers were this big at this time of year because they overwinter as eggs, but maybe there are some this big. So cool. I challenged the group, are these killdeer? We see killdeer from early on. They are some of our earliest arrivals. They are shorebirds, but these are, if we look at a killdeer, it actually has two black necklaces around its neck, and these only have one, and they have a black face. So these are actually semi-palmated plovers, and they nest on the Arctic Ocean and the Hudson Bay lowlands, and they only pass through here. They overwinter down on the Gulf of Mexico, so they only pass through Toronto during migration, so it's a huge privilege to see them. This is very, very cool shot. Thank you, Marina and Sonia. We've included this slide in the last couple of slideshows, but keep forgetting to talk about it. These are American widgeon, ducks with the green stripe through the eye. They are like gadwall or mallards. They will nest in this area, and so this pair is probably going to nest at Leslie Street Spit. We were thinking about which swallow this might be, and it's actually a barn swallow. And the only reason we can know for sure is because of that little piece of orange above the beak. But we have 5 different swallows at Leslie Street Spit, and it's very fun to take a picnic down there at dusk, and they're flying around on the beach in huge swarms. And you can see these are northern rough-winged swallows, but we have bank swallows and tree swallows and barn swallows. Just really super, and they're also aerobatic and so super cool flyers.